Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine ancient knowledge, not just philosophy tucked away in books, but something actively shaping, well, everything: healing, warfare, art, even how states were run.
Right, all interconnected.
Exactly. And today, we're diving deep into some really fascinating sources that talk about something called the Upavedas. Plus, there's this epic story, a real tale of sacrifice, love, and duty that brings it all to life.
Yeah, what's so captivating, I think, is how these ancient texts offer almost a blueprint for living, from your personal health right up to how society should function.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal here, our mission for you in this deep dive, is really to pull out the core ideas from these derived knowledges, the Upavedas,
Yeah.
and see why they still resonate, why they might still matter today.
Absolutely. Because the Upavedas, as our sources explain, are essentially these practical offshoots of the main Vedas. Think of them like specialized fields.
Applied knowledge.
Applied knowledge, exactly. Taking that foundational wisdom and putting it to work on real-world stuff. So we're going to look at 4 key branches, and then, like I said, this incredible story that sort of weaves it all together.
So good.
So, okay, these Upavedas. The sources we looked at explain them as these 4 essential branches. They're called Pratyekstana.
Which means derived knowledge.
Right, derived knowledge. They come directly from the main Vedas, but they fit into this bigger picture too. A system of 10 Vidyasthana.
Abodes of knowledge.
Abodes of knowledge, or sometimes Dharmasthana.
And if you think about that larger framework, it really drives home that these aren't just, abstract ideas floating around. They're practical sciences,
Mm-hmm.
directly tied to human well-being, how society works best, its knowledge put into action.
That's a really crucial distinction, isn't it? So the Vidyasana are the big categories, and the Upavedas are these super practical, derived branches. Okay, let's get into the first one, probably the most famous, Ayurveda.
Yes, Ayurveda.
Connected to the Rig Veda, our sources say. And it really is the science of life itself, isn't it? Focused on health, long life. It's described as being aimed at giving life and health.
It really is. And what's insightful is how comprehensive it is. Tradition says the knowledge came down from Brahma through various sages, Daksha Prajapati, the Ashwini Kumars, Indra, eventually to Dhanvantari.
Quite a lineage.
A divine lineage, supposedly. And originally, it wasn't just one thing. There were 8 branches. Kai Chikitsa,
General medicine.
general medicine, yeah. Then surgery, diseases above the neck, something like psychiatry or Bhut Vidya, pediatrics, toxicology.
Wow.
And then 2 really interesting ones, Rasyana Tantra for health, immunity, rejuvenation, and Vajrakarana Tantra for fertility.
So incredibly detailed, covering the whole lifespan, really.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that while there were 8 originally, the sources mention that today, mainly 3 are widely practiced: Kachikita, Rasyana, and Vajrakarana.
The general medicine, rejuvenation, and fertility aspects.
Exactly. Which suggests maybe a continuous focus on those core areas of human well-being throughout history.
That makes sense. It's amazing how that focus on, the individual health has persisted. Okay, so if Ayurveda is about internal balance, what about protecting yourself, protecting society? That takes us to Dhanurveda,
Right.
linked to the Yajurveda. And this isn't just like learning archery, is it?
Not at all. It's the complete science of warfare. Combat, weapons, strategy,
Yeah.
the whole package.
Who developed this?
Well, the tradition says Lord Shiva first taught it to Parashuram, and then it was passed down through figures like Vashista, eventually reaching Prishamitra. We even have texts mentioned, like Parashuram's Dhanurchandradaya.
So proper documented knowledge.
A codified system, definitely. And interestingly, it wasn't just about how to fight, but also about when and how it was ethical to fight.
Ah, the rules of engagement.
Precisely. Things like not attacking civilians or people who are unarmed. And this distinction becomes really important later in the story we're going to discuss.
Okay, interesting. So we have health, we have defense. What about human expression, connection? That must be Gandharva Veda.
You got it. Gandharva Veda, connected to the Samaveda. This is the Upaveda of arts, music, and, well, communication in general.
I like how the sources put it. Any medium that communicates something is art, and the message is the knowledge.
It's a broad definition, isn't it? And it digs deeper. It makes this distinction between art that's impure, basically just aiming for excitement, sensory pleasure.
Entertainment for its own sake.
Kind of, yeah. Versus art that's sacred. And that's art which aims to create selfless love, truth, a noble character.
That's a high bar for art.
It is.
Yeah.
And they talk about the core elements being rasa, the essence, and the hava, the emotion. There's this beautiful description. Let me see. Where the hands go, the eyes follow. Where the eyes, the mind. Where the mind, the emotion. Where the emotion, the essence.
Wow. That perfectly captures how art draws you in, affects you.
Right. It's not just looking at something. It's an experience that shapes you internally. And the origin, Brahma created it, shared it with Sharada Devi, who then taught Narada.
Another divine origin. So, okay, we've got individual well-being, societal defense, personal expression through arts. What about running the whole show, the society itself?
That leads us to the fourth one, Arthashastra.
Linked to the Atharvaveda. And this is essentially the science of politics, administration, how to make society work.
Exactly. It's focused squarely on the practical side of, setting up and maintaining a state that functions well.
Yeah.
But it's not just about power or rules.
No.
No, the sources emphasize this link between economic prosperity, social welfare, and ethical leadership.
Sure.
It's this blend of policy and, well, philosophy for keeping things stable and prosperous.
Yeah.
Surprisingly relevant, I think.
That holistic view. Yeah, very insightful. Okay, so those are the four Upavedas: Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, Gandharvaveda, Arthashastra. Now, let's get into this story that apparently brings them all together.
Right, this narrative really highlights why this knowledge was considered so vital. It's set during this ongoing conflict between the devas, the gods, and the asuras, the demons.
A classic setup.
A classic setup. And the story shows how the pursuit of knowledge, specifically Upaveda knowledge, becomes, well, the ultimate weapon.
So, set the scene for us.
Okay, the devas, led by Indra, have just been defeated badly. They're demoralized, and they go to their guru, Brihaspati, for guidance.
What does he tell them?
He gives them some pretty deep advice first. Things like, if you let go of the pride of winning, you avoid the despair of losing. And if you let go of the pride of doing, you avoid feeling incomplete.
Wow, philosophical.
Very. But he also gets practical. He criticizes the Asuras for their fighting style, saying they ignore Dhanurveda rules, they attack civilians, the unarmed.
The ethical dimension of warfare again.
Exactly. And he even turns it back on the devas, asking them, essentially, have you really mastered and applied the Vedas and Upavedas properly? Have you upheld your Dharma?
Ouch. So, self-reflection was needed. But the Asuras had something else, didn't they? This huge advantage.
They did. Their guru, Shukracharya, was apparently quite boastful. He bragged about their skills in the Upavedas, better cities, better weapons, even arts. Though he kind of admits their arts are mostly for bodily pleasure.
Okay.
But the real game changer, the critical skill they possessed, was Sanjivani Vidya.
The knowledge to revive the dead.
Precisely. Not just healing, literally bringing back warriors killed in battle, even those horribly wounded. It's described as a profound Vidya, a specialized knowledge involving, specific practices, maybe chants.
That's incredible. How do you even fight an enemy like that?
Exactly. That's the question the devas faced. It highlights the sheer strategic need to get that knowledge. Your enemy can just keep bringing their soldiers back. You're doomed.
So they needed to learn it themselves, which led to a desperate plan.
A very desperate plan. One of the devas had to go undercover, basically, become Shukracharya's student and learn the secret.
But who'd volunteer for that? Going right into the enemy camp.
Well, Brihaspati's own son, Kacha, stepped up. He said he'd risk it, for the sake of the devas, for the greater good.
Brave move. What happened when he got there?
It was quite the ordeal. First, Shukracharya's daughter, Devyani, falls head over heels in love with Kacha.
Ah, a complication.
A big one. Meanwhile, the Asuras figure out who he is, or at least suspect him, and they are not happy. They kill him.
Kill him. So the mission failed.
Not quite. The first time, he's out grazing cows, they kill him. But Devyani is distraught, pleads with her father, Shukracharya, who uses the Sanjivani Vidya to bring Kacha back.
Wow. Okay. Round one to Kacha, sort of?
Sort of. But the Asuras try again, kill him a second time, and again Devyani pleads, and Shukracharya revives him.
They must have been getting frustrated.
You'd think. So the third time, they get creative, they kill Kacha, burn his body to ashes, and then mix the ashes into Shukracharya's drink. Wine, or soma perhaps.
He drank. His own student.
Unknowingly, yes. Devyani is beside herself, praying intensely. Her prayers make Shukracharya realize somehow that Kacha is inside him.
This is unbelievable. How does he get him out?
Here's the genius, or maybe the desperate part. Shukracharya decides to teach Kacha the Sanjivani Vidya, while Kacha is still inside his stomach.
What?
The sources imply a sort of mystical transmission of knowledge. The idea is Kacha learns the Vidya, then uses it to, well, tear his way out of his guru's stomach, killing Shukracharya in the process.
Killing his own teacher.
But Because Katya now knows the Sanjivani Vidya, his first act upon emerging is to use it to revive Shukracharya.
My goodness, that is intricate and intense.
Absolutely intense, like something out of a myth designed to test commitment to the limit.
So Katya finally has the knowledge. The mission is a success, but then there's Devyani.
Right, the final test.
Yeah.
Katya has the Sanjivani Vidya. Devyani, who saved his life multiple times and is deeply in love with him, begs him to stay, marry her.
And he...
He refuses.
Hmm.
He tells her very clearly that his one and only purpose was to get this knowledge for the Devas.
Mhm.
Mission accomplished, he has to go back.
Wow, that's harsh after everything.
It is harsh on a personal level, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it's this moment of profound conflict. Think about it. The enemy tried to kill him 3 times. This woman saved him and loves him. But he chooses the mission.
Duty over love.
Duty over love, over personal safety, everything. He even rationalizes it, saying Shukracharya, as his acharya, his teacher, did his duty by teaching him despite the risk. And Katya, as the Shishya, the disciple, must do his duty by learning and returning.
And his father, Brihaspati, agreed.
Yes, Brihaspati reinforces it. He basically says, look, in war, you can't afford to be emotional. Individual feelings don't count when there's a greater cause at stake. Which does make you ask, doesn't it?
Ask what?
Does society or the greater good always end up demanding the sacrifice of the individual? Is that the price of progress or security?
That's a heavy question.
Yeah.
So what happened after Katya returned?
Katya returned to the Devas with the Sanjivani Vidya. The sources mention Devyani later marries King Yayati. That's another story. And the Devas, now armed with this knowledge alongside the Vedas and Upanishads, were able to establish governance.
So the knowledge really did tip the scales.
It seems so.
So stepping back from the story, what's the bigger takeaway for us? How does this relate to today?
Well, our sources point out this long, continuous tradition of research and innovation in India, going way back, maybe even to the Indus Valley. In education, arts, philosophy, the Upavedas are even described as fountains of new research.
Constantly generating new understanding.
Exactly, which prompts the question, I think, how much do we value different kinds of knowledge today, especially the arts, or holistic health, or even ethical strategy?
It's easy to focus just on tech or economics, maybe?
It can be. And there's this really powerful quote in the material we looked at. It says, humans without music, literature, and art are like animals.
Wow.
Though without horns and tails, roaming the earth like beasts, merely a burden on the land.
That's blunt, but it really makes you think about what makes us truly human beyond just survival.
It certainly does. It stresses the essential role of these other kinds of knowledge in civilization.
A very strong point. And you mentioned the sources also briefly touch on the 4 Purusharthas, the goals of life.
Yeah, just to mention at the end, listing dharma righteousness or duty as the first one, perhaps setting things up for another exploration down the line.
Definitely something to keep in mind. Wow, okay. What a journey through the Upavedas and that intense story of Katya.
It really covers a lot of ground.
It does, from health and warfare to art and politics, all seen as vital knowledge. And the Katya story, it really forces you to grapple with those tough choices, personal feelings versus a bigger duty.
Absolutely. It's more than just ancient history, isn't it? It feels like a timeless look at what knowledge means, the sacrifices it can demand, and maybe what defines a meaningful life. And maybe you could consider this. If these ancient cultures place such profound value on blending art, health, strategy, governance, what kind of balance should we be looking for in our own lives and our own society's pursuit of understanding?
That's a great question to ponder, a fantastic place to leave it for today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into these really rich sources.
My pleasure.
As always, keep digging, keep questioning, and until next time, stay curious.